And welcome to this edition of our live stream. We're coming to you on Thursday because we're taping our weekly Huckabee show a day early to accommodate some production challenges that we have in our theater this weekend. We're so glad to have you join us, and we hope that you will be watching the Huckabee show this weekend. It's going to be a terrific show. We'll tell you a little more about it later. Pam Kay, senior producer for the show, joins me as she does every week, normally on Friday, and we're going to have a hard time reminding ourselves it isn't Friday, it's just Thursday.
Dealing with that all day long. I keep thinking it's Friday, so hey, extra day for us this week.
Somewhat.
Sorta.
Yeah, kind of. Sort of, kind of. Absolutely. Well, we're thrilled to have you. We hope you will send questions to us in the chat. And if you'd like more visibility, send it in a super chat. We got moderators watching the line. They'll get your questions, send them to Pam. She will read them to me. I'll do my best to answer as many as we want to get to. We also have a lot of other stuff to share with you, including some absolutely fabulous videos that you may or may not have seen, but we'll have some comment on those. We're going to be talking about the incredible, though perhaps unsurprising news that the government has been strong-arming social media companies to censor information that the government, they just don't like, as if that's a function of the government. But this government thinks it is. Even though the Biden administration seems to be ignoring inflation and the economy, I bet you aren't. We'll talk about that today. And we've got some real doozies from the Libs of TikTok account. If you're not familiar with it, this is a pretty amazing thing where there's a group of people, they just go to TikTok and they take verbatim the clips that are on TikTok and they show them. And honestly, it's funnier and more outrageous than anything someone could create in the way of satire. It's a great page, and it's doing a lot of wonderful work, showing just what the extreme left is doing to utterly destroy our society. It's something we all should be paying attention to. We certainly are, and you will be after today. Now, before we jump into it, if you enjoy this show, I hope you'll do us a favor and hit the like button. You see it there on your screen? Hit that like button. Now, we're going to try to get to 1,500 likes before the end of the stream. Helps us boost our reach in the YouTube algorithm. This way, the video will be shown to more people, and I'm sure you'd love to see that happen. So smash that like button. Don't smash your computer, just the like button. And also, of course, we also tell you to subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification bell, leave us comments and questions. All of that becomes very important. So this is as interactive as we can possibly make it to be. Just about every week, we have a pre-show poll. We ask folks who are kind of getting ready to watch us what they're thinking. And Pam, you've got the results of that.
Okay, now I want to make sure I have the right one, guys. Now, is this the one about the cereal? I want to make sure I've got the right one. Yes?
Cereal?
Okay. Yeah, we do not have that on my live stream read. So.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Please stand by, as they say, Guff.
Oh, so we're not going to do that?
Here it is.
No?
Now we have it.
We go.
Just
Okay.
in it. Do you think inflation is just a boogeyman, or is it an actual big deal? 97% says it's a big deal, and absolutely a boogeyman, just 3%.
3% think it's a boogeyman. I wonder who those 3% are. They must.
I'd like to meet those people.
They must have so much money that they don't even pay attention how much they pay for groceries, gas, or anything else.
Yeah. So there you go. There's our pre-show poll today.
They may even pay for their own boogies. Who knows? I don't know.
What?
Anyway, our favorite comment from last week's live stream is really more of a question. This is from All's Buzz. That's the name they gave us. We don't make them up. We just read it as they come to us. Here's the question. Would it be an eye-opener if Ted Cruz, who was on The View this past week, if Ted Cruz had asked Whoopi Goldberg why she didn't leave the country after Trump won the election? Because she said she would. Great question. You know, there's a whole bunch of Hollywood celebrities that every time we have an election, it doesn't go their way. They tell us that they're going to leave the country if somebody they don't like wins. But they never leave. They always hang around. I think we should charter several large jets and the day after the election, invite them to get to an airport. We will pick them up and take them overseas and drop them off. Because after all, we don't want them to break the promise that they made to the American people that they would leave the country if the election didn't turn out like they wanted. It's basically like some of us may remember kids acting like when they were 6 years old. The game didn't go the way we wanted. We take our ball and go home, or just go home. Tragic. Anyway, here is my question for you this week. How many Senate seats do you think Republicans will win next week? Do you think they will have a majority? And if so, how many? 50, 51, 2, 53, 54? How many do you think? Leave your answers in the chat or in the comments section below. So we are going to get to some clips.
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. There is a full screen that we're going to put up, and this comes from the Department of Homeland Security and from an article from Intercept, which is a internet webpage. And I think it's kind of interesting because what they point out is that this talk that the Department of Homeland Security was going to get rid of their disinformation department, you know, where they were going to have, as they call that person, what do they call her? Something, a derivative of Mary Poppins.
Oh, gosh, Gaff.
What was it? She was horrible. And she was going to be like the czar of disinformation, and she was going to be the basic government censor to tell us what we could and couldn't think. Anyway, so they fired her, but as it turns out, they really didn't get rid of this department. They just pretended that they did, which I find to be very, very disturbing. So Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, she gets asked about it, and here's her answer.
The Biden administration remains fully committed to our mission to protect the security and resilience of our elections and safeguard election infrastructure. That includes combating disinformation. That is something that we are committed to. We work to protect that, protect Americans from disinformation that threatens the homeland.
Okay, there you have it. Karine Jean-Pierre telling us that White House is very committed to dealing with disinformation. Well, they could start by throttling their boss. There's no one in America who trots out more misinformation and disinformation than Joe Biden. We'll have some examples of it in today's live stream, so buckle up and sit back and pay attention because I don't even know what she's pretending to talk about when she's acting as if the government has some responsibility to team up with social media companies to shut down the free speech of America. In fact, one of the most interesting things really came when there was an attempt this week to say that, free speech does not cover misinformation. And from the left to the right, everyone in between all said, yeah, it kind of does. And many constitutional scholars, very liberal ones, had to take issue with that comment because it was nonsense. That's the whole point of free speech. You get to say things that are outrageous. If you only said the things that the powers that be agreed with, there is no free speech. That's right. Totalitarianism. So yeah, free speech gives you the right to say stupid stuff that's wrong, stuff that even you know is wrong. You're free to do that. There's certain limitations, but anyway, for another day. The economy, while it may not be on Joe Biden's mind when he makes his speech like he did last night to the American public, it is definitely on the minds of most American families. And the White House is doing its doggone best to try to tell you that they are really on top of everything. They really stuck their nose in it and got smashed when they tried to pretend that the Social Security check increases that people are going to start getting at the first of the year are a result of the great leadership of the White House. So they sent out this tweet basically congratulating themselves that the checks will be the highest increase ever. Only one little problem. Some real fact checkers pointed out that the only reason that the Social Security checks are going up is because inflation is a 41-year high. And back in the days of Richard Nixon, that's how long this policy goes, Social Security payments are based on the Consumer Price Index. So if the CPI goes up, the Social Security checks go up. The president has not a stinking thing to do with it. But it does remind people that inflation is so high that the increase in a Social Security check will be the highest it's ever been. What did the White House do? Did they admit they were wrong? Nope. They just deleted the tweet, pretended that it never happened, and they went on lying to us just like they have been. But no longer could they claim that the reason the benefits were going to go up in Social Security was because of great leadership. It was actually the opposite. It was their failed leadership, high inflation, that made the Social Security checks go up. So if you get an increase in your Social Security, thank Richard Nixon, not Joe Biden. And for some of you, that will really hurt to thank Richard Nixon and not Joe Biden. Joe Biden's trying to explain the economy, and he tells us that what we need is an economy that works for everybody. Watch.
The economy that works for everybody. Through bold actions like this one, we're taking that vision to reality. This is what it looks like when America comes together to get something done.
Don't know that America's come together except throughout the Democrats. The only thing I see that's kind of unifying the country right now. By the way, 75% of the American public thinks we're in a recession. That's a pretty big number, 75%. That means a whole lot of the Democrats believe that too. But you would never know it hearing from the White House because, well, watch Karine Jean-Pierre.
That has sparked real fears that the nation could be teetering on the edge of a recession. How will the White House prepare for that?
So, want to be clear, there are no meetings or anything happening like that in preparing for a recession.
Nope, there's nothing going on here. We're not having any meetings. We're not preparing because, see, they're in utter denial. They say we're not in one. We don't have one. We're not going to have one. Not one on the way. Nope. Everything is great. I've said in the faint background, I'm hearing Ethel Mormon singing, "Everything's Coming Up Roses." Now, you got to be pretty old to even know who she is and what the song was, but if you're of a certain age, you will remember. And that's what I think. Believe me, Joe Biden is old enough to know. But it's almost like they're just oblivious to the fact that we clearly are in a very difficult time. In fact, it's not something that you'll just hear on conservative news outlets. Dana Bash of CNN, even she acknowledged it.
This is really kind of epic, and it's what's reflected in this poll is reflected in the conversations that I have had in traveling to, I believe it was 5 different states since Labor Day, talking to voters. Democrats, Republicans, independents, they are feeling the economic pain, and they want to hear solutions. They just want to take out their anger on somebody, and the best way to do that is with the greatest thing that we have as Americans, which is our vote.
And, you know, there would be a good reason that people would take out their frustration in their vote because things weren't this bad until Joe took office. Now, Joe can blame a lot of people, and he does. He blames everybody but himself. He blames Putin, he blames Trump, then he blames Trump again, then he blames Trump again, then he blames Putin, then he blames Trump, and then he blames all the MAGA Republicans, and then the MAGA Republicans. They're really at fault. But he never says, you know what, here at the White House, since we've taken control, we really boogered this up. But think about it. They have the White House, they have the House of Representatives, they've got the Senate. They got the whole show. They got all the power. They can appropriate, they can get it passed, they can do it without having to bring the Republicans in. And on a few things, that's exactly what they have done. Simple question for you. Is your life better right now than it was January of 2021? Gas cheaper, groceries cheaper, cheaper to get takeout food or go to a restaurant? Is it cheaper to stay in a hotel or fly in an airplane? Are you more worried or less worried about your future? How about your 401k, your retirement plan? Maybe you're a retired fireman, retired teacher, retired factory worker. Have you looked at your retirement account lately? Is it better under Joe Biden than it was under Donald Trump? Simple question. It's either better or it's not. Maybe yours has stayed the same, but my guess is it's gone down a lot. And when did that happen? When did that all start going on? So you can pretend and say, I'm going to vote for the Democrats because they're doing a great job. But explain to me exactly where that is. Their answer, leave the borders wide open. Since Joe Biden took office, 5.5 million illegal immigrants have come across the border. That's 2 million more people than live in my home state of Arkansas. That's like the entire state of Arkansas illegally showing up plus 2 more million people, which would be the population of, what, maybe Rhode Island or somewhere? I don't know. This is insane. And if you think that that's good for America, then vote for these Democrats because you're going to get more of it. If you think turning people out of jail for a violent crime that they committed just hours ago, while the victim who got hit in the back of the head with a brick is still in the hospital, if you think that's brilliant, vote for the Democrats who are running, because this is their platform. But I cannot imagine that anyone thinks it's a good one. We talked generally about the economy. Let's get into the specifics of inflation. I want to get to that. Then we're going to take some questions from you. Joe Biden says that we are in inflation, but it's not our fault. It's just a worldwide thing, and the war in, and then he forgets where the war is even going on. Let's watch.
And they talk about inflation. You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing. I mean, excuse me, the war in Ukraine. And thinking of Iraq because that's where my son died. Because he died.
Many people have pointed out, and the death of his son, Beau, was a tragedy. His son was the Attorney General of Delaware. Sad situation. He died of cancer. He did not die in Iraq. This is one of those things that's just confounding. A parent loses a child. It is a huge tragedy. I don't care if the child is 3 years old or 50 years old. And from all indication, Beau Biden was a class act, served the military, was in the JAG Corps, which is the legal corps. And he went to Iraq at one time for the legal purposes of helping sort out legal issues for the Army. But he didn't die in Iraq, and he didn't die from combat. He had a brain tumor. And this was after he got back to the States, and he wasn't even close to dying in Iraq. It all happened back home in Delaware. You would think that his father would be very, very clear on the details of his son's death. I find that just tragic, to say the least. So Joe Biden talks about inflation, and his explanation, I guess it leaves something maybe to still wonder about. Let's watch.
That's what I call inflation. At the end of the month, what you have left, if you have no money, that's inflation. What are you, the things you need, are they going up? And they are. They are.
Well, that's profound. Yeah, when you run out of money before you run out of the month, that's inflation. Good going, Joe. It's pretty much what people are experiencing. And then he says, the things you need that are going up, they are. He says there's no inflation, yet he just now told us what it was, and that is exactly what it is. Things are going up, and you have more month than you do money to pay for the things of your month. Tim Ryan, who's running for Senate in Ohio, was once considered to be an absolute cinch, apparently in real trouble, and he will probably be defeated this week by J.D. Vance. And when he was asked about the various things the administration has done to deal with inflation and would they be effective, his answer was, well, maybe a little more honest than he even intended.
Can you look me in the face and tell me that government expenditures on green energy subsidies through the Inflation Reduction Act that increase our national debt are in any way lessening my burden at the gas station and the grocery store?
I could not say that right now in the present moment.
No, you couldn't. By the way, there's an old expression that a gaffe is when a politician accidentally speaks the truth. That's what Tim Ryan just did. Because when she's asking this Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA that Joe Biden's so proud of passing, passed it without a single Republican vote, only the Democrats voted for it, multi-trillion-dollar deal that basically is spending a bunch of money on green energy not to reduce inflation. And this person in the audience says, look me in the face and tell me, is this doing anything to deal with inflation? My gas, my groceries, and the cost I'm paying. And Ryan at least was honest enough to say, nope, couldn't say that it's done a thing. But if you really need an explanation on inflation and how it's affecting people and what causes it, there's no better source to turn to and Senate candidate, Lieutenant Governor in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman.
Talk about the trillions in massive tax cuts to the corporate tax structure as well. True, trillions of dollars that have added to the deficit, and now they still want to support those as well. True. I think in terms of being very serious about addressing inflation is making sure that those rates are brought back into a line with what they should have been, where they're able to fight the deficit.
I'm sure you got that.
What?
Sad. That's painful to watch.
Yes, it is.
The word cringe-worthy shows up in my vocabulary when I'm watching him, and that's pretty sad. All right, if you're enjoying this show, why don't you do us a favor, hit the like button. We're trying to get to 1,500 likes before the stream ends. It will help us boost in the YouTube algorithm. That's an important thing, that algorithm. We are living or dying by it. So this video will be shown to more people if you hit that like button. So pop the heck out of it during the course of this live stream. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell and tell us that you are watching and leave us questions. Speaking of which, let's get to some questions right now.
And we do. And we're going to start with the Super Chat this afternoon, Governor, and a question that I think a lot of folks are really wanting to know. Dorian Crawley is writing, and she says, do you think we have any real chance of fair elections? I have very little confidence. Closer that we get to November 8th, the more desperate the left gets.
I think you're right about the more desperate. I think in some states there will be some questions, but many states will have very fair elections. I've often pointed to Florida as a state that once had the worst system and now has one of the best. Their elections will be tabulated, and I bet you before 10 o'clock in the evening, they will have almost all of the results in. There won't be a single question about it, and they're the third largest state in the country. Places you'll need to watch, particularly Pennsylvania and Georgia, Wisconsin and Michigan. Those are states that I would say keep your eyes on. Even though this time there's a lot more monitoring being done, the mail-in ballots are not going to be as easy because the courts have now ruled that they have to be delivered within the time frame that the state constitution calls for. Do not skip out on voting, even if you don't think that the elections in your state, and by the way, they're all different. Every state has their own way of doing it. So it may be pristine in one state and the one next to you has some questions. But I don't care whether yours is the most pristine state or the one with the most problems. Vote, because the one thing you cannot afford is to just walk away and assume it won't matter. I think it will matter, and there are more monitors watching the elections than ever have. A whole lot more attention being focused on keeping these elections fair. Let me point out, remember when Georgia passed their law and Joe Biden called it Jim Crow 2.0? Stacey Abrams went berserk. You had Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines all tearing their garments, even though they had supported the bill. They moved the All-Star game. Did you know that they have a record number of early votes in Georgia? Historic high. So I would say that if voter suppression was what the Republicans were trying to do, it was a miserable failure because they have the highest number of votes in pre-voting they've ever had.
Wow. Wow. All right, Governor, we do have a poll that we're doing today in the chat, and I think we asked, how many Senate seats do you think the Republicans will win next week? And this is how it breaks down. They'll lose seats. We're at 4% there. 4% gain, 1 to 5, 39%. More than 5 seats gained, Governor. We are at 53%. The poll will continue while we are together this afternoon so that folks can still participate. All right, Governor, Zelda May is asking, does Joe Biden believe the words that are coming out of his mouth, or is he just a liar?
Ooh, that's a
strong,
blunt way to put it, isn't it?
Wow.
I don't think a lot of times he knows what's coming out of his mouth because it's not coming out of his head. It's coming from the screen that he's reading. And look, Joe Biden is Ron Burgundy. If you saw the movie Anchorman, one of the catch lines in the movie was, whatever you put on the teleprompter, he'll read it. And of course, that ultimately got him fired. Unfortunately, it's not getting Joe Biden fired, but he pretty much will read anything that's on the prompter, including stage directions. He's done that before, which was incredibly sad that he read a stage cue. I think some of it is dishonesty. Joe has a long history of just making stuff up. I mean, really seriously bad history of making stuff up and putting himself in places he's never been. This past week, he talked about the conversation he had with the inventor of insulin. What I guess he didn't realize was the guy who invented insulin died before Joe was even born. I don't know what kind of conversation he had with him, whether it was through some psychic, I don't know, but that was strange. So some of it may just be dishonesty, but a lot of it is, I think, is just a lack of awareness. Doesn't know what he's saying. He just reads it as it's put in front of him.
All right, Governor Stan Ross is writing this afternoon, so many people are going gaga over Elon Musk taking over Twitter, yet he wears a devil costume for Halloween. So what do you think?
I think he's just a weird guy. I mean, I enjoy him because he's his own person. I don't think Elon Musk is a conservative or a liberal. I think he's more a libertarian. And I think, quite frankly, he loves to poke at everybody and make them guess and make them wonder. He's clearly a genius. I mean, an absolute genius, the richest man in the world. And I think he just lives life and has fun with it. So I don't try to explain him. I just sit back and kind of watch and enjoy, especially when he takes on people that no one else is willing to take on. I find that kind of refreshing.
Absolutely.
Okay, remember, if you're enjoying the show, hit the subscribe button so you subscribe to the channel. YouTube won't do us any favors in showing content to people unless they beg for it. So the best way you can get all the content with our subscription is to hit the notification bell, and also by being sure to click on the like button. By the way, we upload content almost every single afternoon from the show and other places. So just remember, the Live with Mike live stream will be on Friday next week, not Thursday like it's doing today. But there'll be a lot of other things that'll happen between now and then that we'll have loaded on there. Let's take one more question real quick, and then I'm going to go to the final set of videos that we have that are just amazing.
All right, Governor Laura Buckles writes this afternoon, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Paul Pelosi fiasco.
The simple answer is it was a horrible thing that happened. We don't know really all that happened, and we may not for a while. And until we do, I think we ought to be very careful about commenting on it. I've seen some people on the conservative side, the right side, they've made all kinds of conjectures about who this person was and why he was there. And I think that's a terrible thing because they don't know. And so I would say to my conservative friends, be careful. Don't go out on a limb and talk about why this guy was there. You don't know. But I also say these people on the left who somehow blame Donald Trump for what happened, this guy was, what we do know is this. He was basically homeless. He was a drug user. He is an illegal immigrant. He's on an expired visa. That's been confirmed. He's a Canadian, so he's not from the south of the border, but north of the border. But he's an illegal immigrant here. He should have been deported a long time ago. He's mentally ill. He has been a big supporter of gay pride and Black Lives Matter. That doesn't really sound like a Donald Trump MAGA kind of guy, but some people are trying to say that he was. No indication of that. So let's wait and see. In the meantime, pray for the recovery of Paul Pelosi. That's what I would say about it. Well, we said at the beginning we were going to show you some, these are clips from Libs of TikTok. These are just like they were posted. These are not satire. These are not making fun of people. These are the people who completely believe that what they're saying is just beautiful. I want to see the first one. This is an individual who says that if you believe there are only two genders, may I just add that the reason I believe that is because that's kind of what biology tells me. The XX and the XY chromosomes kind of delineate it that way. And long before that, God said, male and female created he them. This person disagrees with God, science, and everybody else. Let's watch.
The gender binary is a direct result of European colonization. And if we look globally and historically throughout the world and the ways that people have existed and talked about gender, the idea of there only being two genders is a new concept that is directly linked to white supremacy.
A new concept, male and female. Because he probably, is 20 years old by the looks of him, her, whatever. And somehow he has it all figured out, that for thousands of years of recorded human history, we've all been wrong. This kid shows up and he's telling us how it is. How did we ever get along before he came?
I know. Glad to know.
Hard to understand. Now, there are other people who they don't think there's such a thing as a boy or girl. Let's watch.
Hi, kids. There's no such thing as a boy or a girl. And I can prove it. Everything you can think of that makes a boy or makes a girl is usually, but not always. And some of them are not even usually. Where does that leave you? Free. You get to like what you like. You get to be who you are. Maybe you're even like me, and you're not a boy or a girl.
What do you do? What do you do? I want to remind you, these are not done to make fun of people. These are actually the posts that these people put on TikTok because they're very proud of their points of view. And the libs of TikTok just take them as they are, and they put them on the screen for us to see and to say, God help us. That's my reaction to it. Now, we've been telling you about those who are advocating for the surgical mutilation and the chemical castration of boys and girls in the name of transgenderism. Some people say that's not really happening. But I want you to see Dr. Daushan. She is the co-director of the gender clinic at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. And this is what the doctor running a transgender program has to say.
What would be the youngest that you would have referred a patient for either of those surgeries?
As young as age 14 is probably sometime between 14 and 15 is the youngest. But again, like I said, the majority are happening closer to 18. We know that where a child is cognitively and socially is more important than that exact number of their age.
What the doctor is saying is a double mastectomy performed on a girl as young as 14 years old, as well as a hysterectomy. So this is a young girl, biological girl. She decides she wants to be a boy. So at age 14, she's too young to get a tattoo without her parents being there to approve it and sign for it. Too young to get a Tylenol at school. But a surgeon will do a double mastectomy and a hysterectomy on a perfectly biologically normal teenage girl, and we're supposed to say, that's okay. That's why I said from the beginning of the show, if you think that's sane, vote for the Democrats, because they're the ones supporting that. Not trying to make that as a partisan statement, but they're the only ones I know that have made that their agenda, even in this election. Some of us think that's sick, and I hope that you will decide where you want your culture to go. Be sure to leave your questions in the comment section. We'll continue to look at them even after we're off. Subscribe by hitting the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Thank you so much for joining us today. We want you to be back for another Live with Mike live stream next week